Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good Air Show. Today, title of today's show is Hearing Voices, the PRPS Underserved Youth Listening Tour. My name is Dan Hendy, and I am the Education Manager for the Pennsylvania Rec and Park Society, and I'm here to be your host today. My special guest today is Kathy Muller, who is a member of the PRPS Inclusion Committee, a consultant, and our tour facilitator. In addition to all those titles, Kathy was also served as Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Philadelphia Park and Rec Department. She has over 40 years of experience in recreation and has done so many things in the field, including consulting, training, communication specialist, engagement, and on top of that has served as a volunteer for 25 years for juvenile offenders. So she comes from a place of great experience, and we're very happy to have her here today to talk about the tour for underserved youth and how that was promoted and put together. So Kathy, welcome to be here. So I wanted to talk about our listening tour, and this was an outgrowth of our DEI initiatives here at the Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society. PCNR, or the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, has funded some urban initiatives for the Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society. And one of the outcomes of that funding was a set of urban exchanges that we have been hosting throughout the state to try to make sure that all Pennsylvanians are being served recreationally. And these urban exchanges were very successful and proved to be a good sounding board for people in other underserved communities to express their views and work together to make sure that everyone was being served. Unfortunately, COVID hit us in 2020, and we were unable to host urban exchanges. And so we had to think a little differently. And one of the things that we came up with a series of different initiatives that would help us with our DEI initiatives. First of all, we hired a dedicated intern from Temple University to assist and research these types of issues for us at PRPS, and he did a wonderful job. The second thing we did with the help of our intern was our intern Kyle was the survey of our members on what they were currently doing to address DEI issues in their individual departments. And that survey turned up a whole host of findings and where people were on that spectrum was all over the place. And so that helped inform us what we needed to do. So we started some training efforts. We had several sessions at the conference, and we worked closely with a diversity training group who was headed by Mauricio Velasquez on providing some training on hidden bias to all our members through the conference and the webinar. One of the most important things we did, though, was start a listening tour for underserved youth in these communities. And that was a great effort on our part to put together these listening tours. So after the COVID restrictions eased a little bit, we were able to go to these underserved communities, sit down with youth, especially young women, and talk to them about what their perceptions were of the local parks, what they thought about parks and recreation, where they thought they would like to see in their parks, and what kinds of outdoor recreation activities they actually participated in. In this way, we were hoping to gather this information and share it with our membership so that going forward, we would have a better idea of where to put our resources, which because of COVID and all budgetary restrictions have been very hard to come by. Finally, one of the last things, in addition to continued training and development, one of the things that we wanted to have come out of this was a DEI toolkit that we could share with all our members. And that was also the result of the research and the survey on how best we could get all our member organizations throughout the state at least familiar with the issues and better able to meet them head on. So that was the background for this year's DEI initiatives. And we're very happy to say that we made some significant progress, and our DEI toolkit will be coming out probably early next year. However, I'm not here to talk about the DEI toolkit. I'm here to talk about the listening tour, because I'm sure many of you are interested in what were our results and how did that work and how you might be able to get involved. And for that, I've brought on Kathy Muller, who's with us today, to answer some questions about the listening tour and tell us about her experiences and her findings with this tour. Kathy, welcome.
Thanks, Dan. And hello, everyone. It's really good to be here.
Great. Thank you for being here. First of all, Kathy, maybe you can help us out by describing what is the listening tour.
So, Dan, as you touched on, the listening tour was a follow-up to the Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society's inclusion call to action, which we developed in June of 2020. So we launched a listening tour that focused on young and underserved Pennsylvanians that were between the ages of 12 and 17. And again, it was important that we had girls' voices in this group as well as the young men. So the primary goal was to gather information on the teens' perceived as well as their actual access to community recreation programs, but more importantly, their participation in outdoor recreation activities. So we asked about the activities they had participated in, things that they would like to participate in, what some of the barriers might be, some of the opportunities, and possible solutions. So this is aiding the Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society to capture ideas so that we can advance opportunities for their future involvement. And again, we were looking for common themes and best practices so that we would understand how to engage underserved youth in those outdoor activities.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Can you describe what a typical tour stop might be for our listeners?
A typical stop on our listening tour was coordinated with local recreation or governmental officials in a series of urban settings. Young people would come in around 5 in the afternoon, and we provided pizza, hoagies, kind of a light supper, and the kids could hang out for about 20 minutes. After that, we started with an icebreaker, which was a bingo style game. And it was designed to learn more about their experiences with outdoor recreation activities. So some of the activities that were on the bingo card were hiking, biking, fishing, hunting, nature photography, swimming, paddling, camping, skiing, backpacking, and geocaching. So this was a nice way to kind of loosen up the group and, get them talking with each other. After that, we actually had to describe what some of the activities were because the young people were not familiar with everything. So we did that, and then we asked them how many had actually participated in each of those activities. After that, the next step was to ask them what they might like to try to do or what they've done previously that they would like to do again. And to gather that information, we did an engaging activity, which was we had the activities listed up on a board and we gave them dots and they got to vote for those activities. And we really felt that getting young people to move around, talk to each other, and things like that was a great way to elicit information in a very comfortable manner.
Mm-hmm. So you were saying one of the important things was to figure out what kinds of outdoor recreational-based activities might interest these students or these teenagers during the tour, and what ones they were even familiar with. Is that correct?
Absolutely. There were a lot of questions about different activities. We had paddling down, and they did not really understand what that was. And when we talked about that it could be canoeing, kayaking, or whitewater rafting, they seemed to perk up and say, hey, that's cool, I'd like to try that.
Mhm.
Snowshoeing was the universal activity that no one seemed to know what it was. So I think that exposure to activities is really important. And, this was perhaps the first layer of exposure that we were able to provide for some of the young people.
Well, that's interesting. So can you tell me where you had your tour stops?
Yes, we did a couple of stops in the Philadelphia area. We went to Pittsburgh, Erie, and Reading.
Are you still looking to do more tours?
Yes, we would like to go to at least two more areas. If someone would like to invite us to their municipality and they have some young people that would like to have some snacks, late supper, and a little bit of fun, we would certainly be willing to come out and speak with them, because the more young people that we get to speak with, the more robust our data is.
Oh, that is so true. So if you are listening and you do feel like you may want to schedule a tour stop in your area, again, this tour is for underserved youth to try to find out what they're looking for as far as parks and recreation and what kind of activities would interest them, um, and how they feel about their local parks. You can get in touch with PRPS. My name is Dan Hendy, and my email is danh@prps.org. Or you can get in touch with Kathy at muller.recreation@gmail.com. So either one. Thank you for that information, Kathy. So here we are. We've done these tours. We've taken young adults in these nice situations, a little food in their belly, a couple of icebreakers, get them to open up a little bit with us, to talk about, what their feelings are about recreation, outdoor activities, and their local parks. So can you talk a little bit about your findings or the findings of this listening tour, Kathy?
Absolutely. I think the number one finding was where there's engaged staff that's trusted by the young people. They were much more forthcoming with their information, and they were more willing to try activities. The young people talked about how much they came to their center because of the staff, that they really felt that the people who worked at the community center were more than employees. They really cared about the kids, and the young people felt that they were confident to try new activities with those leaders. In addition to that, where young people had been exposed to an activity, for example, there was a group in Philadelphia who were exposed to archery when they were younger day camp participants. Those kids, 7 years later, were more willing to want to try an archery program. So exposure was really important in activities that they might be willing to try.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes, especially a little backtracking here. You mentioned community centers, and I would have to, little background is that many of these tour stops were held at community centers because that seemed to be the local gathering point where we could find these groups, and stage these types of tour stops.
Yes, as a matter of fact, when we were in Reading, it was remarkable how connected the young people were to the staff at that community center. And that was truly a robust group. And they were very willing to talk about their experiences and things that they might like to try. So the listening tour, again, we talk about this, but it is truly about listening. And there were times during these tours that we had to pivot a little bit and to see where the conversation took us.
I had the privilege of being on a few of these listening tours, and the importance of having a trusted adult, whether it's a parent or a community leader or a leader at one of those centers, was paramount for these kids.
Absolutely. That is the common theme. And you can really tell where the staff is out there and fully engaged and caring about the kids.
Yeah, yeah, that really came across.
Another thing that came up in the tour, we did an activity with the young people, and it was called Think, Pair, and Share. So once they were confident and they felt safe talking with us, we asked them a question about whether or not they felt safe in outdoor spaces and if ever they felt unwelcome. This was really an interesting conversation. Think, Pair, and Share is where someone, once we pose the question, they think about it for a couple of minutes, and then they are paired with one other person to discuss the question. And if they are comfortable, then we'll share out to the larger group. And some of the things that came up were very telling. One of the young folks said to us that his family was on a picnic in a state park, and another group turned around and said, "You're too noisy. You guys have to tone it down." And they felt very uncomfortable, and they moved on to another area, relinquishing the area that they had a permit for. So that's really a sad situation. But I believe that these are the kinds of things that we need to talk about in order to facilitate a better sense of inclusion. A young lady told us that she was called a derogatory name in a park. And instead of confronting or anything else, again, she and her friends just left. These are some of the moments that came out that are really important for us to understand as we review everything that we've learned in the listening tour.
Mm-hmm.
We asked the participants what would make them feel welcome in outdoor spaces. And another idea that came across was that they wanted to see staff there that looked like them.
Mm-hmm.
And when we really talk about this and you look at the field in general, there is not as much diversity that represents the citizens in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
We further explored the idea of talking about careers in parks, recreation, natural land management, forestry, outdoor activities, event planning, and those were career paths that were not very familiar to a lot of our participants. Throughout the Commonwealth, if we are looking to diversify our workforce, we need to present these activities and engage young people in outdoor activities. It's not something that we're going to be able to accomplish in a short period of time. Mm-hmm. This is something that we need to grow the idea that these are activities they can participate in, and these are actual career paths for them.
So to summarize a little bit, Kathy, what we were finding was the importance of trusted adults to participate in these activities. There's often a lack of even awareness of outdoor recreational activities. Especially in these underserved communities, there's sort of a lack of park presence. The other thing I think I remember from these sessions is that most of the listening tour stops, when we asked the kids if they had been to state or national parks, they hadn't. So their focus on parks was very narrow, and it more or less focused on the local community park, or parks. So, you know, there's a way to think about when you're allocating your resources. I thought that had some implications.
I agree. I think it's important for us to develop opportunities for urban youth and teens to be able to participate in outdoor activities. Transportation and financial resources are as important as the actual activities being offered. So what we need to do is eliminate the barriers. We need to find some activities that we can perhaps offer to those municipalities that they may be able to take their kids.
So, Natalie, we had a lot of different findings. Admittedly, it's a small group. It's not a scientific survey, so to say, because of all the complexities, and did pick up some good subjective information. And, you know, as far as about attitudes about outdoor recreation and parks and facilities. So what do you think might be a good recommendation that came from all these tour stops?
The participants were very open to the idea of trying new activities. What I would envision is to develop a list of approved outdoor specialists, activities, vendors that we might be able to generate some kind of funding, whether it's at a state level or within the local level through sponsorships, that the kids could go out there and try new activities. So, for example, if there were an operator that would do kayaking, and we would be able to have some of the local kids go to a state park and try kayaking or participate in a series of kayaking trips, that we would be able to make it more accessible to them. So we would be able to get them to a local state park. We would be able to perhaps defray or eliminate the cost and get them out there to try the activity a few times. And if we were to build on this, in addition to going kayaking, perhaps the third time, maybe we introduce fishing to them. So this would be an opportunity to layer different activities so that they would be able to try and decide what they like, and perhaps they would go on with some of their friends or with their family to try these activities.
That's an interesting concept, to have some sort of system or vendors that would be knowledgeable about the different audiences that they may be taking care of, and have sort of a complete soup to nuts type of operation where you can just contract out with the vendor and be assured through a vetting process that they were going to take care of the kids properly, the teenagers properly.
Absolutely. I would envision this to be a menu of activities that local municipalities would be able to select with the input from the kids that come to their centers to see what they would like to do.
Great. What's next for the listening tours?
As we mentioned earlier, we would really like to try to visit 2 other municipalities and get a little bit more information. We've already spoken with about 150 young people throughout the Commonwealth, but to get a few more voices would certainly help. In addition to that, we are planning to host a session at the Pennsylvania Recreation and Parks Society annual conference next March to talk about the findings and the implications. I think at that point, it would be very exciting if we were able to actually have a menu of vendors and activities so that folks would be able to concretely go back to their city or their township and begin to offer outdoor activities.
And one of the other things that we hope to have from this listening tour is the production and distribution of the DEI toolkit. And that toolkit is, it's multi-part. The goal of the toolkit is to make it long enough so that it has the information you need, but short enough so that you can sit down and read it in one setting. And you can use it as a resource going forward. So we've been very deliberate on making sure that the toolkit is relatively short. I think it's going to come in under 10 pages. It'll be downloadable document. What it's going to do is help guide you on assessing yourself and your organization on how responsive you are being currently to DEI, and maybe opening up some ways forward on how you can increase being able to address those situations both personally and within your agency. In addition to that, there's going to be a whole mess of resources available in the bibliography to sort of point you in the right directions for whatever kind of issues that you may have discovered among your agencies. So we're really looking forward to that. It'll also include a justification and a few other treats for you. So we're looking to have that available early in 2022, and we're pretty excited about that. And hopefully in the future, I think in 2022, we're going to restart the urban exchanges with the focus being results of the listening tour and what's next. And as Kathy mentioned, one of the ways forward, I think, is to develop this roster of approved outdoor recreation providers that you can easily join up with from your different organizations to provide some really needed services and experiences in outdoor recreation. Because I think one of the justifications you're going to find is that we need, once you start participating in outdoor recreation, you grow an appreciation for those activities, and you also grow an appreciation for your parks. So this all works together to help our members and ourselves develop those younger people to develop an appreciation for their parks and recreation activities and all those good things that come with it, such as clean water, better health, mental wellness, you name it. And but that all has to start with an appreciation of the parks. And to get that started, as Kathy said, it's when kids are exposed young, they tend to remember and they tend to hold on to those activities, and the appreciation grows. So that's my spiel for this session. Kathy, do you want to add anything?
Thanks, Dan. I think that you've captured the themes and the spirit of what we want to do. And if I have any advice, go out, take a young person, go for a walk, go out and enjoy the wonderful outdoor spaces we have in Pennsylvania.
Oh, great words, Kathy. Thank you so much for that. And thank you today for all your information on the listening tour. Again, we are still looking for a few sites. If you are inclined that you may want to have a visit by us, please get in touch with the PRPS and we will make that happen. Today, I want to thank you, Kathy, for being on this Good Air show. And I look forward to working with you many times in the future. And again, that's about it for today.